All right.
All right. So, hello everybody. Welcome. This is Live Feature Rant. Coming at you this week as we are every week. And on my screen right is Adam, who you've been seeing quite a bit here. And
Hello, sir. How you doing?
doing pretty good. So, also on our screen left, we have Tall Iced Latte, who is returning guest here. So that's pretty cool. Always good to have people back.
Thanks for having me back.
For sure. And let's just kind of go over a little bit of what everybody's all about. So I'll start it off. Of course, live feature rant, dead feature rant for H1Z1, Unity Daily. I'm working on this dual input game. My first Flash game. I'm remaking in Unity now. It's actually making pretty decent progress. Procedural powerhouses on Saturdays, Sundays, of course, Castles and Crap Shacks, which is actually going to be changing to content and creations here pretty soon because there really aren't Crap Shacks in Landmark anymore. And, of course, all of my awesome shows you can find on YouTube as well. Speaking of YouTube, Adam, why don't you kind of talk about your stuff for a little bit here?
Oh, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. I do videos of the geeky nature, entertainment, video games, that kind of stuff. So check it out, please. At0mXII, same as Twitter and here. So it's pretty easy to find. Please check it out. Give it a subscribe if you remotely find what I'm doing there interesting. And there'll be more stuff coming.
Cool deal. All right, and Tall Ice Latte, why don't you tell us not only a little bit about your channels and what you've been up to, but also kind of give everyone a bit of a refresh on your background and experience with MMOs and builder games and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So on Twitch, I'm Twitch TV, twitch.tv/iced_latte. On Twitter, I'm at Tall Iced Latte. Which is after the drink, not because I'm tall. I'm rather short, actually. It's amazing the kind of trolling you get when you have tall in your name. But anyway, yeah. So I've been playing games ever since my husband roped me into it. I'm one of those wives that, my husband was like, oh, come on, don't you want to play this game with me? And look, I can decorate my house. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. So, I started playing. I started with Ultima Online, then Star Wars Galaxies for a little bit, World of Warcraft, EverQuest 2. Still play EverQuest 2. I love Minecraft as well. So just kind of bounce all over the place depending on my mood.
Gotcha. So then you have a whole lot of experience with a lot of that stuff because Ultima Online. I mean, so you've been at it for a little while then.
Yes.
I played that.
So for those of you playing the Star Wars Galaxies drinking game, you are now required to take 2 drinks. Because she mentioned it, and then I pointed it out.
Yeah, that means I got to get a little bit more of this action going. Just finish the little bit that I already poured. Because we already started talking about Star Wars Galaxies early and often.
2 minutes in.
It's 3, by the way.
That would be 3 now.
All right, so let's stop talking about
you
that.
You all are well off to getting drunk, so good luck with that.
Oh, I just have one Cadavari. It's more the bottles that I alternate between. Yeah, Ultima Online was a lot of fun. I'm definitely, when the next round of Shroud of the Avatar goes in, I'm probably going to get in and get my 2 cents in because looks like a fun game, and I promised Richard Garriott in person that I would. So I got to honor that.
You got to follow through with that, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he still has a place in Austin, or at least he used to. I drove by it once.
Probably.
It was really cool.
Yeah. Real cool, dude. Real humble. Great to talk to. Well, humble in some ways, but also he understands his position as a veteran in the industry and a trendsetter that continues to do awesome things. So that's really cool. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about, not just with the Landmark Live, but then the workshop. So let's get started. So they talked about the patch process, and I'm not really going to get into the details. It was about the first 20-30 minutes of the show. And I would be remiss if I said they told us a whole bunch of nothing, because they didn't. They actually told us a lot of really good detail. I have experience with that sort of stuff, so it's not news to me. But for people that don't have that same insider perspective in the industry, it was a great explanation of kind of how a patch comes about. And oh, excuse me, they called it the patch process, but by the end of it,
They were clearing up
yeah,
update.
yes.
So
I
an
mean,
update is when they add new content to the game. A patch is when they're fixing something.
yeah. To be
Yeah,
fair,
I think the meds maybe influenced Dave a little bit there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say there's a lot in common with the process for both. It's just one of them is a feature you're intending to put in, and the other
Yeah.
is a
Putting
feature
out
that's
fire.
you're broken. Then you have to go back through and fix it real quick. So they're maybe different processes, and they're iterated in different ways, but they're definitely similar in nature, because at the end of it, there's something that we have to download that does something to the game files, and then things are different.
Diggs is pointing out they kind of covered a lot of that last week, it seemed. Diggs is right,
Yeah,
except that was the bug process.
yeah,
Sadly, this is what an office project works like.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's just what they're doing on that level. On the core level is different, but the bigger process is. But it was still, I mean, most of that was like common sense, or it was stuff I've already sussed out and kind of understood for a while, just being a fan of games and having been involved in development of games, as a tester. So it wasn't like, a super surprise, but you got to remember they're at this point, like they're saving everything for, the big stuff and surprises, for SOE Live. So I'm not surprised there was a lot of fluff.
Yeah, it's good filler content, and it's like
Yeah.
my husband commented last week. He was like, "Man, they must have a lot of complaints about bugs if they're spending all this time, and how long it takes to fix bugs." And I was kind of like, "Yeah, that may be part of it, but I think the another part of it is there's just a huge fan base that geeks out on anything games and
Yeah.
anything that they can learn about what it's like to be at the offices or work in a game studio. I mean, you just want to know."
yeah.
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 So, like I said, though, I suspect they're saving stuff for the next couple of weeks. So, plus also, I think whatever happened with the DNS servers really just threw everything for a loop the last couple of days. There's way more
Yeah.
downtime for a lot of people than I think they were expecting. So, I mean, again, development, the stuff staggers sometimes. So we'll see.
Yes. Now
It
that's
was
the
informative, and if you're gonna, like you're all watching this after the fact, you can always skip through if it gets boring for you.
Yeah.
But there was plenty other interesting stuff, later on in the show.
for
so.
sure. Like literally about 25 minutes at least of just this is what's going on with the process. So, you can get about halfway in the video, and then you start getting to the real meaty stuff. It's when you see Dave switch over to the other chair is when
Yep.
Yeah.
that's when things start
When
getting
things start
interesting.
picking up, if you're kind of like, so what's happening this week? And,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the segment, I think, is when Dave was showing off all the props and everything.
Oh yeah, so
And the water.
the big deal this week is water, and
Yep.
I have to say, I'm not a builder, but I immediately got in game and I put a cube in the middle of the air, just big enough for me to be able to jump into and swim around, and I was like, this is goddamn cool.
Yeah.
This is
Yes,
like
yes.
it only be like I can't wait to see what players start doing with this. But immediately I thought of force fields. I was like, yes, I can do some interesting stuff with this.
It's funny.
This is interesting.
Immediately, I thought of Jello.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
That's
same.
actually the first thing I did with water was use the line tool to build a big diagonal line that I could swim through, and it's like, yep, that's exactly what I want it for. So between that and I requested, you folks have seen it for the past 2 episodes, I've talked about moving bookcases. We've got moving bookcases. The power of doing the thing on Reddit. So, we've got a lot of props that we're going to want for the Kerran stuff. Definitely hit up that Reddit post. We'll talk about that a bit later. But, we've got the bookcases. We've got the shag rug that moves. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So doing some sort of like a water wizard's tower or something, or maybe roll that in with the Kerran stuff is actually something I'm kind of thinking about. learning that the Kerrans are water-based. That's so interesting, but we'll talk about that later
Yeah.
too. Um, so that's so much interesting stuff. Those
No,
new
so I missed. I must have looked away, and I didn't even think to look. So what new props do we have this week?
There is the bookcase that rotates on a rear hinge, one that rotates on a front hinge. It kind of swings a little bit further. A shag rug. You can have a moving version, a non-moving version. Stackable bookcases.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to look for the update notes now, which I should have looked at earlier. But okay, excellent, excellent. Yeah, it just gets more interesting every week. It's really starting to get interesting.
I can't wait to see what people do with that rug.
Yeah, well, this is a direct feedback. Like, I saw several of the regular viewers kept saying, like, Neuro was saying he wanted to do like bookcase / hidden doorways, and this is clearly just okay. We can do that right now. Hang on, and they did it. I think that's great.
Yeah, the Noble's bed, the ornate bed or whatever, and a couple other props. Now the other thing is the rug does not move the character. If you're standing on it and you click it, it will slide out from under you. I don't know if that'll be interesting for making places to drop people through, or how people are going to utilize that. I was kind of hoping we could use it as like a platformer style mechanic, but I suppose the pork cutlet does it exactly the same way, so I could have kind of anticipated that being the functionality. Still, like that can definitely be used to make some sort of a platforming mechanic, especially for if you can restrict people to single jumps and no enhancements or whatever. That's one of those features we'll hopefully see later. And that's I don't know if I put it on our show notes here, but we should definitely talk about kind of the SOE live reveal stuff, because there's been a little bit more hinting at awesome stuff. They've kind of said, yeah, there's combat, but there's going to be other awesome stuff too.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that they have been holding their cards very close to their chest this entire time. And there are surprises coming. Or who knows? Maybe it'll be something crazy like an alpha access for EverQuest Next starts tomorrow. Well, I'm not really buying that, but who knows? But
I'm not buying that one.
They've got some big surprises that we're just not even really speculating about. You know what I mean?
I bet they do. Are you going to go, Adam, to SOE Live?
No, unfortunately, that is not a trip I can afford to make. Sadly, I would love to, but I can't.
Oh, that's right. You talked about that last time.
Yeah,
that's right.
But I will be watching the live streams for sure, and I'll be there in spirit. That's for sure too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought of ways they can cut costs on the Dave Georgeson litter. You could probably actually carry the entire front and just get someone else to carry the back instead of having 4 people.
Well, he's got a high-tech scooter, so he doesn't.
That's true.
He doesn't need to take me up, sadly, on my offer to carry him everywhere he needed to go. So
that's true.
It was probably cheaper to get the scooter than to fly me out and put me up. So I can completely.
But the effect, the drama is not.
Oh, it would have been very funny.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
For sure. I'm just glad he's all right. I'm glad.
He seemed like he was really in pain.
Yes, and I'm sure he's on a super heavy-duty cocktail that's making it really difficult for him to focus on work. No doubt about it. Knowing what big pharma gives people in his shape, he's a mess right now. So hang in there, Dave. We love you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So. Among the other things, Moonstone. Now, I was expecting at some point during the Dark Elf stuff that we would see Amaranthine with all the different variations of stone. That didn't happen, but all of the sudden, like, we weren't really asking for Moonstone variations that I'm aware of. But here it is. We have all the different bricks and styles with Moonstone that we didn't have before. So
I suspect Erudites. Did Erudites come up as one of the races we think are coming? No, probably not.
Actually, they weren't even allies with the Combine, and it sounded like Corlin might have just screwed things up if he tried to negotiate and get them on board. So at this point,
so it sounds like they're not going to be a starter race. Then.
Most likely not.
Because I was going to say Moonstone would probably be great for Erudite builds, but Diggs is saying he hadn't thought about Moonstone for Kerran builds. And again, it may not even be for Kerran builds. It might be for something down the road.
Or
I think it's just it's just
do-
there.
Or dwarves. I bet you dwarves would do some nice stuff because yeah, I'll bet you moonstones for dwarves.
Do you think they had that ready before, anticipating that dwarves would be the one?
Maybe. Let's face it. God help us if they pit dwarves against Fae in the next round, because
Oh.
I'm gonna have to vote Fae. Don't do that, guys. Put like something
Yeah.
dumb against dwarves next time around. Let dwarves be the next winner. Like, matter of fact, can we just sorry, no voting
Yes.
this week. We're just gonna say dwarves. That way,
No vote.
grass doesn't kill everybody in the office.
I think Omid was saying if they don't win the next vote, they're just out of the franchise. They're just going to be written out of EverQuest.
Yeah, he's made that joke a couple of times. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure somewhere among the costume things, Brass has a real mace.
Oh, I'll bet she. Oh,
Yes.
oh, I'll bet she does. I'll bet she does.
I'm
and
sure
I'll
she
bet
knows
you,
how to wield it.
And I'll bet you edged weapons are probably something in the collection too, folks. You're not going to want to mess with the dwarf, so we want dwarves next time around. Yeah. So as far as SOE goes, Katavari is asking, why didn't you vote for a good race, Adam? I did vote for a good race. I voted dwarves last time, and I begged people on social media to vote dwarves.
I voted dwarf. Well, I did. Yep.
So
I don't know who all these people are that devoted Kerran. Who are they?
I know. I think I really think, and I said this last week, the problem was Jeff came across as highly fascinated with the Kerran, and I think he weighted the voting for people who probably didn't know any better. Like you know what I mean? They're not the inside folks who know who Brass is, who care about the joke that Brass might hurt people if dwarves don't win. The general people may have just taken Jeff's nod and said, "Oh, okay, Kerran sounds like the cool thing to do next," and just hit a button. Because I've had to do that in the voting sometimes, like who and the what and the where. That sounds cool, But so who knows?
And like I had also said last week and even the week before, there was one specific race other than human we saw actually do combat at SOE Live last year, and that was Kerran. So I feel like there was probably just an overwhelming silent majority of EverQuest players who just voted Kerran because we've seen him in action.
Yeah,
and they're maybe hoping that somehow SOE is going to slip up or be a little bit lax and maybe allow Kerran models in the game or something. I highly doubt that's going to happen, though. I would like to see them add an item that allows us to scale our character up to the proportions. And SOE kitten was another factor.
Katavari is saying the voting was rigged, so he I'm not one to give into conspiracy theory easily, but the facts are there.
Yeah.
I think the Kerran voting was rigged.
I don't think so. But yeah, something where you can grow the character to the size and proportions of a Kerran. It doesn't even have to look good, just something functional, so that way when we're working on Kerran style architecture, we can actually feel that size, because when you have the camera that big, when the character is actually that wide, it's going to make things a lot easier to understand the proportions you're trying to work with, and it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to scale something from human size to Kerran size once it's been built. They said it. Kerrans are big. They're they're an extra head height at minimum. That's not even standing their full length. That's in like more of a combat pose over a full height human, and they're pretty. That armor makes them incredibly bulky too. So they've got.
Yeah, I mean, if they had a helmet on.
Spiky helmet or something. Yeah.
Or shoulder.
It probably wouldn't, though. I suspect they're the kind of race that wants access to their fangs.
Yeah, that's true. I would imagine some amount of. Now I just wanted one racial abilities. That's a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Let's wait till combat starts coming through before we talk about that. But yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to see.
So we were saying big, and to the people who were billed, they made a big point, and I was glad they mentioned it, because I was going to mention it, that you also got to take into account the camera. I've seen games where they don't give you enough ceiling height, and and you're constantly clipping into the ceiling, or the door jams all the time, and the camera doesn't gracefully handle that if you don't give it enough. And so they were just pointing out to folks, remember, make it roomy. So it sounds like they want it big. Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Absolutely.
say no spiral staircases for Karens, but it doesn't seem like a spiral staircase is really something they care to have.
Yeah. Well, again, you look at
Yeah.
that. The template screenshots they kind of showed, and the documents. Like we talked about last week. If you look, like like it all because they're cat people.
Yes.
And they're going to jump.
Hmm.
They're going to, and I mean, anybody have a cat? You know how they get around. They're very acrobatic, and
Yeah, it looked like they had more like bridges,
exactly up
Well,
in
per
the air,
se.
high. Like cats
Yeah.
like to be. Cats when they give into their predatory nature like to get up as high as they can and hang out and see the
yeah.
room. It sounds like they're taking a lot of their cues from the lions and domestic
Yeah.
cats, and
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah.
we actually have a lot to talk about with Karen, so let's pull back on that for the moment. We've got some more stuff to talk about from
Okay.
the Landmark Live show, like multiple template screenshots. Oh my
Mm.
goodness! Now you don't just have to show the one angle and have people kind of guess from there what you're actually trying to sell them. Now they can actually see multiple screenshots, and I know they want to have fly-throughs at some point as well.
And that's
That's
in the
cool.
game right now. I noticed it today when I
Yeah.
was in the interface. So, if you already have templates, it does look like it's allowing you to add just new photos to it if you want to. So,
Yep. Latte, were you gonna say something?
Mm-mm. Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Okie dokie. Cool deal. And of course, that's not just for your templates, but also for Player Studio. So it's a
yeah,
big deal. Like it, we might not need to say too many words on the subject, but it's a huge deal. It's big for builders, big for people showing stuff off, big for people trying to sell stuff.
Absolutely. I knew it was just a matter of time before that option came.
yeah, yeah. And of course, they also added marketplace updates. I didn't peek at
Oh
these yet.
yeah.
I got the notes right now, and it reminded me. Let's see. We got a bedroom furniture bundle with all of this week's new props. We
Hmm.
had new tints to existing outfits. Victorian wear is in brown. Casual Victorian apparel is green, and Nomad's finery. They have a nice dark green, and they've added some starter kits to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Basic, superior, and deluxe. And this looks like a variety of um, vault. Oh, inventory slots. There's wait
It's
a minute.
it's got a lot of
Holy
stuff in it. It's
no,
got
no,
a
dude, take a look. You got to go take a look at
no.
the
I know.
deluxe
No.
I
kit.
know what's in it. We're gonna
We're
Okay.
gonna have a whole little
yeah.
spiel.
We've got a little section.
Well, we're here, so yeah,
All
so
right.
we should probably. So,
All right.
just to explain to folks that may not be looking right now, the basic kit, resources, make a claim flag and attach two claim flags, basic grappler hook, keen eye bands, portable shards, light stones, some materials, like real basic gear just to get you going. Superior kit, etc. In here, though, they're adding some of the streamer outfits. I see a lunar anklet,
Mhm.
and then in the deluxe kit, I see a lunar anklet and a feather in a bottle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So apparently, you can now buy your way into getting those items if you should so choose.
Yeah, well, they had it a lot of different ways, and we kind of talked about this in the pre-show a little bit. A lot of different ways to get the lunar anklet. It was
Yeah.
promised as one of the landmarks of landmark items, so people were able to get them that way. Of course, getting them from live streamers. I still have some, so you can still win some from me.
And you're not the only one. I know other streamers I think can still sitting on some. So,
Yeah, I'm sure a lot are.
Yeah, but absolutely. I mean, if you look, people were savvy and they kept a few. They're becoming more valuable, but they're not impossible to get that way. But they also have it in the EQ Adventures app. If you complete the quest in there, you get a lunar anklet for that, I believe.
Yeah, I can agree with you, Flaming Cowhead. They should probably give the starter kits to the different levels of the Trailblazer, Explorer, and Settler, just straight up, just as a thank you sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
It's certainly
I think so.
that's actually a kind of a good suggestion. That's not one I would be against. You might want to make that maybe start a polite thread in the forums about that, and be nice about it, and they may actually say, hey, you know what, that's a great idea, let's do that, because I think that would make a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
In this
I
particular
think
case.
that would do a lot to mitigate some of the maybe some unhappiness that might go around, with these kits. I mean, I've been in alpha since day one, never had a feather in the bottle, and I can see both sides of the issue. I don't have a lot of time to game. I work
Yeah.
full time, and so not having a lot of time to game, it would be nice to be able to go and purchase a starter kit that would kind of give me a jump up, so that I could, instead of grinding through all the tiers of weapons and figuring all that out, I could just immediately start to mine and build and get to the fun part. On the other hand, I'm kind of like, well, but I had to work for it. I had to walk uphill both ways, and
Yeah. Welcome to
So.
my world. This is what it felt like when Jedi became a starting profession in Star Wars Galaxies during the new game experience. Drink, everybody. But multiply that times 1,000. And that's what that felt like for me. And that was sorry, Bucko. Take it on the chin for us, would you? This is not that by any stretch of the imagination,
right?
As far as time invested,
and still,
I personally go for it.
If we think of what the items actually are, not the exclusivity of them, but what they actually are. Double jump
really
items are probably going to be a dime a dozen. In fact, I would wager down the road there will be a triple jump item, a single item that'll give you 3 jumps.
Stuff will be out leveled, out useful at some point in the game, and
Yeah.
they really will be nothing more than, hey, I got this thing. Remember when? I did see somebody complaining about the inventory slot thing and calling it, greedy. Remember, this is going to be a free game. They've got to. Not everybody is going to sub. Like a lot of folks have paid into the all access, and that is definitely the way I would go if I had a steady paycheck coming in right now.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of, though, I'll be playing free, and money comes and it goes for me, like doing contract work, I have spurts. And so it's like when I do have a couple bucks, I have no problem throwing $5-10 in the store. And I know full well that probably most of my money will end up being spent on outfits and inventory slots. And that has always been the way in every Sony game. They have never sold power items. They've never sold, geared with levels on it. They've always been very, very cognitive about what they're selling in the store. If you don't want to buy those, I'm sure there's going to be ways for you to either trade or buy them in game, without having to do that. But right now, if you want to increase your inventory, you have no choice but to spend the money on the game. And it's like, that doesn't bother me. Right now, I'm just working the limitations, and when I have a couple more bucks to throw in there, I will. And I'll probably end up spending it, like I said, on clothes and inventory slots. And I don't
Have you bought any clothes yet?
Oh yeah, I immediately, as soon as I had a couple bucks, because I won my way into the beta. I lucked out, and as soon as the day closed beta started, I won a settler pack.
Nice.
Still trying to get myself, a Trailblazer pack, so I can at least get the items, that are still available in it. But I was happy to just get in the game and get playing. But I hated all the outfits, so when I had money, I immediately bought that wicked looking red medieval, Victorian outfit, and I will probably buy that in black. And when they come out with more cool stuff that's not era specific like that, I will probably buy more of that. But it was dramatic and flowy and looked cool, and I've always enjoyed that about Sony games, and I've said it before on the show about EverQuest 2, and I have never had a problem when I know I'm gonna not have to pay a sub, throwing money in the cash shop to make up for it. Being able to buy a great backpack, being able to buy a skin, or of armor that'll make me look all cool.
So
is awesome.
What you're talking about here, actually, I think about something that Nexon was doing. Now, they did it in like the worst of ways, but I think it could be a system that could be leveraged into something a lot better. the way they did things, the more you spent, the higher your spending rank kind of got. You started
Yeah.
at like basic, and you go bronze, silver, platinum, gold, or gold, platinum, super, whatever. So, kind of extrapolating on that, the idea that the more somebody spends on Landmark, they automatically get some of those items, or they automatically get the monthly item instead of having to win it from a streamer. I could definitely see that as something they could do. Or if you're at a certain level, you like every month
That's
you
a great
get
idea, actually, because they haven't announced. Not to interrupt you here, but that's an all access. Players who
Yeah.
are all access, that's your all access monthly reward. You guys get the stream item automatically every month.
yeah, that'd be
That would be
smart.
sweet.
That'd actually be a
That'd be-
great idea.
You need to put that on Reddit.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, or when do you do that? I don't do Reddit.
All right.
Yeah.
So, let's kind of think about. Well, let's pretend Axon doesn't. Yeah, right, Paputsa. I'm still waiting on that Ghost in the Shell game that they're allegedly the ones who are going to be developing and publishing. Sometime later this year, it should be coming around. I love that series. I hope they do the game justice. Anyway, end tangent. So, ultimately, I don't know what the price points are for those starter kits.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely
we'll see that on the site, right?
yeah, we should. I mean, there's definitely the
Some
plus
people
and
find-
the minus for them.
I mean, again, I have seen plenty of live streamers complain about buying outfits, but then think nothing of dropping money on resources. Resources you can run down the hill and mine yourself.
Yeah,
So I really don't, again, everything in here is obtainable pretty much, or abilities like it in game. So yeah, I have no problem with this,
All
but I
right.
do think that's a great idea. They might want to consider giving these kits to the folks who, spent money on the early access, to the game. And that really would, I think, go a long way to
I think that
Make-
would appease
Yeah.
a lot of people. Yeah,
Yeah.
All right.
absolutely.
So I actually, us fellas have been ranting on this subject for far too long. Before we move on to the next subject, Latte, please, any other thoughts you have on the subject, the floor is yours. We will not interrupt, and if one of us does, I'll shut the other one up. So let's do this. What's your thoughts?
No, I think I love the idea of the SOE all access people getting the perks that the streamers are giving every month. I think that is an easy, low cost way for them to kind of pat you on the back for doing the SOE, subscription. I think that's a great idea, and I'm going to go ahead and steal that idea and post it on Reddit as my own.
Awesome. Please do. Very much appreciated. And when you do, we will all come through and upvote it and give it good comments, because
Good.
that's what a good community does, right? Everybody in chat, I'm looking
That's
at all
right.
of you there. All right. So we're moving along here. So next week, the workshop show takeover. I don't know if they're doing a full 2 hours or an hour and a half, or just going as long as they're going to do. But next week is going to be entirely no Dave, no Terry. It's the art team and Dexella in there, and they're going to be pretty much giving us all the feedback on all the Kerran stuff we do between now and then. So if you want to get feedback on your ideas, you have to build them, and you have to get them in and let them know. Put screenshots up. There's, I believe, going to be a place where you can actually submit the stuff so they can see them and give comments on it. So that's going to be the one of the really nice things next week. I'm really excited for it. I don't know how it's going to affect the timing of live Feature Rant. It could be a little interesting, but I'm very, 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 very excited for getting to see what's going to go on with Kerran's. And I was excited in the same way with the Dark Elves being able to see their entire kind of culture come to life through the builds that we see. What people were able to build from the concept art, what people have extrapolated on it, built new things, done different stuff. Maybe some people did some snowy things. They didn't talk about ports at all. They've got ships, they've got ports. You'd imagine they've got a lot of that sort of stuff. How would you build a port in a way that you're not interrupting nature but building into it and working with it? There's all sorts of considerations like that, and I was talking with someone earlier while the workshop was going about the idea of a ship with living trees as the masts for the ship, like this just giant ship that's so big that it's actually got dirt and roots inside of it, and maybe even as part of the structure of it. So that's something I would love to see, and we're definitely going to be able to get our feedback next week. So we are gonna talk about Kerrans later. So I'm actually just gonna move right along to the next subject, the SOE block party. That is
You're
on.
so lucky that you get to go.
Yeah.
You live in nearby enough that you can.
I know.
Go. I'm on the other side of the country. Sadly, I'd love to.
Yes.
Yeah, that is. It would be great if you'd be able to. I mean, it's one of those things that I wish everybody could attend, but at the same time, like if everybody was there, it'd just be like this zombie horde outside of SOE because I'm sure everybody wants to go. So I'll definitely do what I can to report on exclusive stuff from Landmark and probably H1Z1 and various other things, and talk to people who I can, and take pictures with people, and try to get more swag for giveaways and stuff like that. And they might even have
definitely the swag.
Yeah.
Everybody loves swag.
They'll probably have 7-day beta keys like the ones they had at E3. I probably want to grab one just so I have it to add with the other random swag and stuff for the game that I have, but ultimately I don't know if they're going to be giving away any new special items for attendees like the Prime Grapplers they gave us at the Year of EverQuest event. But it should be a really fun, awesome time being able to, get all sorts of information and see if I can get some more, see if I can get some people from the actual team on here, because I realize, this many episodes, I think I realized it last week too, we haven't had a developer on yet. And
you totally need to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, we got to do that.
Yep. I'm curious of who's in chat that's going, if anybody else in chat's going to be able to make it.
Yeah, that's a
good question. Who in chat's going to?
I know
make it to the block party.
Diggs is going to be going. I hope. Might even carpool.
There you go.
You got a carpool going? Oh, really?
Potentially.
I saw you say offer it. Did people take you up on it?
I've only heard back from Dig so far. I might put another one out there, or maybe not, because I don't know how far I want to go off the freeway to be picking people up left and right. It's a straight shot 2 hours right now if I don't go off track anywhere. Diggs, Maddox, nice.
Nice.
Cody,
I
actually,
have a friend who keeps saying I should crash at her place in Los Angeles and look.
Well, then go.
You got to get out there, though.
Yeah, that's the problem. Getting on an airplane costs money.
If you're throwing eggs at the block party from across the street, Wick, nice.
There you go.
You got to have
people that work in the areas around it are thinking, "Oh God, another event at this company."
Yeah,
I'm sure it happens.
They're used to it. I'm sure. Well, they're in a complex, right? There's probably other businesses,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like an industrial park, right?
Yeah,
absolutely, right. There's other
got
normal companies there.
Well, they've got their own.
Have like the whole building, so they have their own section doing
large area. The entire Termin Court street is basically the driveway that leads into their parking lot section. They've got 4 different buildings. Excuse me. So they initially were just in the one building, but they've managed to build up, and they're up to 4. Yep. So they took over the entire area. And if you're going to be throwing eggs, you got to have a pretty decent arm. I mean, it's like a 5 or 6 lane street to cross to get there, if I'm not mistaken.
There you go. Maddox said he's going to meet you in the beer garden.
Hell yeah.
So if you want to go, they ask you to RSVP on Facebook. So.
Yep. So if you don't have a Facebook, make things up and put your name on it somewhere, I guess. Or, but definitely do RSVP. There's definitely going to be a lot of people RSVPing who probably aren't actually going to be there. Just they want to RSVP because they think it's cool. So the numbers are going to be skewed a little bit. But there's also going to be a lot of people probably attending who didn't actually RSVP.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's going to be a lot of fun, though. Landmark Live will be Friday. I don't know what's gonna be going on with that. I thought was it Margaret Crone who's gonna be hosting the entire live stream event, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, cool.
It was okay. I know it's one of these 3 people because I follow their channels regularly. It was either Maggie, it was Jimmy Wisenhunt, or it was Adam Clegg. One of those 3 people plus I think Meps are going to be doing the entire show for the live stream for it. So that should, yeah, it was Maggie. That's right, because I asked her to get me on for it because like we're down.
Awesome.
We're old school down from Planet Side 1.
Planet Side 1.
Planet Side 1. Yep, I actually drove a Mag Rider that she got to gun in for a little bit. So technically
Nice.
before Planet Side 2. Some
I knew
history
Meps
there.
when I knew Meps when he was working on Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah,
You
because
just
have
looking
version.
for-
Yep.
No, actually, I was just thinking about it. I actually completely forgot about the stupid Star Wars Galaxies drinking game until I mentioned it twice.
Okay.
Sorry.
I would like to point out, I'm not a big fan of the drinking on stream drinking game thing, but it was this chat room that made up the drinking game, not me. I don't actually drink, so.
Technically, it was actually the Evercast before the show, the Evercast
No,
that you were
what-
on. Because
I
we
thought
had
that-
it going then, and then I think it kind of rolled over to a live feature rant here.
Okay, I thought it started here and carried over to there, but you know what? You're right. It did start on that show.
There's no requirement on what you have to drink. I mean, my one Corona is gone, so moving on to water.
I'm
Woo!
drinking coffee and soda, so hey, there you go.
Hey, that's right. Doesn't
So
have to be alcohol.
Dave has a scooter. We talked about
Yep,
this
we talked
earlier.
about that. So that sadly, my offer of carrying them everywhere is off the table.
Yeah.
I think the only other big thing we did get to see his Robo Leg, which looked kind of cool. I thought that was neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those around. They're pretty neat.
But other than that, it ended with them teasing basically next week we're getting template rotation, and you're going to be able to paste templates as air. So if you guys want to, this is where Nero's now going to talk for 20 minutes about what do they call that?
Creating a relief?
Stencils and creating a relief.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like what did
It's a
Dave
great
call it? A
idea.
negative template?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you make a statue, and then you do the negative paste, and then you cut it in half, and then you've got a relief of that statue, and you're done. That's easy. It's pretty
I think
cool.
it's going to be really cool. This is the one feature that was supposed to come in this week that I was really personally looking forward to. Like I mentioned on the pre-show that I have a spot picked out for my claim because I suck and I lost my claim again. And there's this really nice spot, but in order to angle the sun just the way I want it, I need to rotate my template, my claim, and I can't do it yet.
By the way, has anybody else noticed, since you mentioned sun and view, that the sun rises and sets backwards?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's not just me, and I've completely lost all sense of where a sunset's supposed to happen. Okay. It is backward. Is it like that in all the EverQuest games?
No, I don't believe so.
haven't noticed
and
it.
if I'm not mistaken, there was actually a point in the game, and I don't know if it still happens or not, where the sun went down one way and the moon came back up that same way and went across the opposite direction. At some point, I know that did happen.
When? In what game was that?
This was in Landmark at some point.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh my god, I totally missed that.
All right, I'm gonna pay attention for that. But all right, so it's not just me. All right, because I set it up with like middle of the day, and because this is how I built housing in Star Wars Galaxies. Yeah, I went out of my way to be able to set my 2-floor house with the balcony facing the sunset on Tatooine. Went through great efforts to make that happen. I did the same thing here in this game when I started building, only to realize after things were pretty established, wait a minute, shit's backwards.
Yep.
Well, you ended up with
Yeah.
a sunrise view instead of a sunset view.
You know what?
Okay.
I was kind of like, yeah, that works for now.
Yeah. So long as it's oriented one way or the other, I'm totally fine.
When there's a wipe, next time I'll reset the template facing the other way, so I have my sunset the way I like it. But yeah,
Oh, it's okay,
you're right.
yeah.
Sunrise works too.
Yeah.
It does. And it's funny because I always orient my builds. I mean, even in Minecraft, I orient my builds towards the sun, either direction, sunset or sunrise. But this house has to be facing the right direction for me. I don't know if that's right, feng shui or whatever.
I
just how I
honestly
build.
don't take that into consideration at all because
You don't?
the light changes so much over the like while I'm building, the light's already changed 2, 3, 4 times. It's like, well, screw this. I'm using my static lights to light everything anyway. I can't really rely on the sun or the moon for
Oh,
anything.
no, no, you've got to orient it right. Right when you build, you mark it out which way it's going to face, the direction you want for that. You have to think about your windows and what view they're going to be framing, design.
Windows,
Yeah.
they're lucky if they've got stairs and ramps.
Like she said, feng shui. It's the feng shui of the environment. I pride myself on the feng shui of my very minimalist Frank Lloyd Wright looking crafting outfit.
Oh, yeah. I definitely tend to do more of the minimalist, but that's not because that's what I prefer. It's just all I'm capable of building.
Same with me. Same with me.
Okay, so we'll just go with it. It's on purpose, right?
It's like it's not an eyesore, and it was designed very much for the landmarky and being able to jump on things, grapple up to things. I may actually rebuild it bigger now that everybody's got crazy things that modify their ability to jump. But
Yeah.
it was completely like a pyramid shape for that reason. So I could just literally slide up and down the steps, and I tweaked, and like they mentioned on the workshop show this week about go through it. It should be fun to move through. Believe me, I've been through builds that were beautiful, have these wonderful towers, and then you're spending 8 minutes trying to go up the fucking
Getting
tower.
dizzy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god! You're like,
And you're like, where can I grapple? Oh no, I can't grapple there.
Yeah.
Oh no.
No,
Yeah.
and you have to keep bringing your mouse in. You have to.
I
keep
use the
bringing your mouse
phrase claustrophobic spiral staircases.
Yes.
That's what they
Yeah.
are.
in. And so they were like, sure to remind folks that test it out, move through it. Is it easy, fun to move through? And that was kind of what I was doing when I built what I did, and it was purely for function as opposed to because I knew I could build for that. I just wasn't going to be able to build for like, oh yeah, it looks like Mona Lisa in 3D, No.
Well, let me tell you what. Nothing I would ever build would ever be any kind of a fancy schmancy awesome build. I mean, the dark elf stuff that I saw just absolutely blows me away. And
Oh yeah.
Mimsy is here in chat with us, and she and I are friends from other games, and we've been talking about starting our own landmark guild of. I mean, we're trying to figure out some way to say it other than landmark for dummies, or we have no imagination and we suck at building. I mean, maybe we could implement some kind of crap shack into our name.
Yeah.
We're just
Crap Shack's
regular
anonymous.
people that want to play, and we are not good at all. It's hard to have fun and play in a game that you don't feel very successful at, which is kind of why I haven't been playing very much lately. But I know my people are out there, right? They've got to be out there somewhere. So.
Well, the thing with Landmark, especially right now, while they might have contests and competitions, it's collaborative. Everything we're doing right now is a collaboration. It's not a competition. We're not fighting each other to do these epic things that are going to have, these long-lasting permanent effects. Yeah, we had the landmarks of Landmark. That's awesome. Yeah, we had the Dark Elf build contest and people got some recognition for that. That's awesome. But this is just like the very, very beginning. The Crab Shackians, nice.
Nice. Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Totally.
The Crab Shackians. There
I
you go.
love it.
There's so much that the game is, not about who can do the best thing or be the best thing, but what can we all learn about the game and help teach each other and help, more than anything, teach the developers. And to answer the question that was asked earlier of if there is any developer who I could have on the show specifically for Live Feature Rant, it's whoever's in charge of combat. That's the person I want, because that's the person. I said it last week. If I didn't, then I'm saying it now. I'm either going to be their best friend or they're going to hate me being around because I'm going to make their job that much harder. But breaking up the entire combat system, learning everything about it, the full stats distribution process, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I'm actually going to probably start up at least one, if not multiple, weekly spots. I'm specifically just focusing on combat and builds and how everything works together. That's going to be a big focus for me. So yeah, that's we've kind of tangented a little bit here, but it is Live Feature Rant, so we're allowed to do that.
So that wraps up pretty much live feature rant. I mean, they took a quick break, and then workshop show kicked it for almost a
You
full
mean
hour.
that wraps up Landmark Live?
That is
We're
that what I
live
said?
feature rant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to
Oh
say
yeah,
like,
no, we're not done yet.
yeah,
Yeah, no, we got plenty of time still. This guy's
he's gonna be we're gonna be yapping for a while longer. No, I meant landmark live. But then workshop show kicked in, and man, that ran for a good 45 minutes today, which was long for them.
yeah. But this was, we had more
They had a
guards.
lot
Steve
to
Deneuve
say.
were on, so we
Yeah.
weren't just getting a little bit of this and that. We were learning all about the Kerrans. And at some point here, I'm probably going to bring up the pile of screenshots unless they've already posted. Have they already been posted yet? I should probably check real quick, so that way I don't have to mess with the screen and everyone can just listen and look at the pictures. But yeah, we got a lot of information, so much stuff that I didn't even think was going to be remotely the case with Karen's. Now, Adam, you were definitely right with all of your predictions,
Yeah.
but there were things that we didn't know that were like absolutely you couldn't have known.
Surprises. Total
They're
surprise.
seafaring cats. They're cats that are
Yeah.
sailor cats. I don't.
I thought that would be like the last possible direction they would
I
head.
didn't even remotely cross my mind they would be
Mm-mm.
seafaring, but
That's
when
their
you
culture.
said it, their architecture actually made a bit more sense. I was like, okay, yeah.
That's why
So they
yeah.
really are just doing what they want in this reboot
Yep.
of EverQuest lore for sure. They're highly spiritual creatures apparently, and yeah, they're
Yeah, I
they're
can
they're a
see
bunch,
that.
they can be a bunch of cat pirates. Arr.
Rave, it was news to me. I didn't realize that was going to be the case. Karen
Yeah,
captains on the boats. Oh,
EQ2 had a number of Karen captains
Yeah.
on the boats, so
Oh,
it's not
really?
the first
I
time
totally
they-
missed that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm only halfway through the level curve, so I haven't seen that yet. Although, you know what? Now that I think about it, there may have been a boat captain. There's a whole new storyline they're doing with the heir, the whoever the queen is supposed to be. I forget her name right now.
yeah.
The relative of Antonia Bale. You're doing these like a storyline. It's a new storyline quest chain that carries through all of the levels. So I've only gotten to do like half of it so far. But there was an instance boat thing, and I think the boat captain was a cat. Now that you mention it, Iced Latte.
Yeah.
I don't really remember that.
Now-
Somebody had mentioned, I thought, that in EQ, maybe it was in the chat or maybe it was on the Landmark Live today, that in EQ1, Karens were on an island. That was where
Yeah,
they started.
Kara Isle, and I
Right.
wrote it down. It was off the coast of somewhere.
Yeah, so that, I guess, and if you look at it that way, that makes sense that they're now this seafaring race. I mean, but I guess, they're only taking bits and pieces of the Karen from each game.
Yeah, Kara Isle's off the coast of Antonica, so that's where they come from. But they've spread all around the world. They're one of the old empires, one of the old races. They've been around. They've done things. They've got long history. They're a proud and noble people. That's they're not a bunch of cats just doing cat things everywhere. They've also got that high level of civilization to them. So that's really, really cool that they're not just going to be catting around, but they're one of the races that if you go back through and look at history, they've had major significant impact on what's gone on in the world up to this point, especially being very much guardians of nature and being very spiritual and connected to nature. I'm sure there's a whole like massive history related plot lines that we're going to be able to reveal that are specific to Karens and the stuff that they've done in the past. And that was some of the stuff in their architecture and stuff. They're going to have a lot of emphasis on history, on family, historical events, having like the old ancient Greek architecture where there's the big reliefs up above towards the top of the like the Parthenon and stuff that has the stories kind of detailed out in pictures. So I could see the same sort of stuff being done with the Kerrans, and that's a lot of really fine detail stuff. And I don't know if we're going to get props to support that or not, or
I don't know.
how that's going to work. But I feel like maybe 10 or 20 small white plastery Kerran props that would be used for doing the storytelling stuff could actually be a really powerful tool. Oh, Pound, why would you do that?
Oh, I completely lost my thought. Never mind. Me.
Okay, okie dokie. So the first set of image. Oh, by the way, are the images posted? Was anybody able to find those?
I have not looked for the images yet. Let's check. I guess the one thing I do want to say about Kerrans, while we're kind of in this lull here, I mean, I like how they are talking about the fierceness and the nobility of the Kerrans. I think that definitely makes sense to me, especially coming from like a cat perspective. They seem so like aloof and kind of arrogant in a way, almost elvish kind of in their distance, from other people.
Yeah.
So it surprises me then, because of that, what I perceive distance, that they would be so such a huge impact on history. I don't see those two as going together.
Mm.
Nobody Tanlin digs. Everyone's mics are open. I don't know what you're talking about, Diggs. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
Nothing. Never mind.
It's all good. So, and the other thing I was going to say with cats, in terms of being on boats and in the water, cats actually have all the advantages when it comes to water, to be perfectly honest. Four-legged mammals are actually pretty decent swimmers, and because cats have that natural kind of air bladder, kind of subcutaneous, they'll have extra capabilities to float that other races might not necessarily be able to have. So I would imagine they'd be great swimmers. Because cats have incredible balance, they'd be great. They'd be able to just leap from mast to mast like it's no big deal. So being able to navigate a boat would be really easy for them. Keeping their legs when the boat's all, getting hit by the waves and everything, or during a fierce battle, they'd be just fine. So in terms of a seafaring race, cats who can get over their issues with water actually are able to do very well to adapt to that water.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I know, my cat is deathly afraid of water, but other than drinking it. But
Yeah.
I've known cats who are like, "I'm going swimming.
Yep.
Let me come with you." I've seen it. They're out there. So yeah.
Yep. And some cats, when they're all wet and matted down, they kind of look like otters when they're swimming. It's cute.
Yes, they do. It's cute.
I have never, ever in my life seen a cat swim. Ever.
You should look it up on the internet afterward.
Oh yeah, they're out
sure
there.
the
Yeah,
internet
yeah.
has lots of things about
fall
cats.
down the YouTube hole of looking for cats swimming. And,
You won't have to go for long. You'll find it pretty quickly.
oh yeah,
That is
it
true.
won't take you very very long.
But I wonder how much of that we're actually going to see. Have to leave the toilet seat down and play in it. Oh, wow.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it's just water to them.
Yeah.
Oh, my
I used
goodness.
to have a cat that would drink out of the toilet if you didn't put the lid down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of cats will do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Raves, is that how you say your name? Raves Starsight? Cats are often recorded on ships, especially cargo ships. They were kept to hunt mice.
Yeah.
I don't think that's quite how the Kerran... I don't think they want to be kept.
No.
Yeah.
They seem a
no.
little... In this game, they're more of the fierce attacker.
Yeah. And that's actually
not just for the
something
Rotongas.
I was kind of thinking about a little bit, and now that you bring up Ratonga, that was kind of why I was thinking about it. It seems like with Kerran architecture and the way they would design their furniture and their buildings in general, not a lot of narrow spaces, not a lot of open spaces for crawl spaces and stuff for smaller creatures. They would want to have everything as big and open as possible, that if they need to chase something down real quickly, that thing has nowhere to run, and they can just deal with it, very easily. That seems like it should definitely be taken into consideration with their interiors. Thanks, Wick.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point.
Because I don't think they would want to, be putting their paw in a hole trying to dig out some Ratonga. That doesn't seem like it's their style. They would have built it anticipating, if I should find a Ratonga in my home, I'm going to be able to corner it and do what I need to do with
Smackdown.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. So if those images aren't posted, then I'll just put up the
Put up your Photoshop ones.
Photoshop. Okie dokie. So
Yeah, that's good. I still can't even access the forums, the landmark forums.
Oh, really? Okay,
I can't get in
got
game yet
back
either.
today. Yeah, I got them back today. So usually DNS transfers don't take more than half a day here, at least on my end. So far, anyway.
Cool deal. Alright, so I'm moving everything out the way right now. You're going to have an obstructed view for a moment, everybody, and don't worry about that. Don't worry about that at all. Let me just get my...
Yeah, Butchie Wolf saying my cat used to open the faucet to drink water and rub its head all over, rub it all over her face. Yeah, we had my parents' cat, big guy, used to do that. He wouldn't drink water from the bowl. You had to leave the bathroom, the tub faucet, trickling, and he would just stick his head underneath it. And,
Huh. That's
just
crazy.
It was
Weird
weird.
cat.
He was an odd cat. He was the run of the litter, sweetheart of a cat, but real kind of scaredy cat, literally a scaredy cat. Like you go to pet him and you'd be like, "What do you want?" Like, we feed you every day. Relax.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been here 19 years. Nobody's
Nothing
hurt
bad
you.
has happened yet.
Yeah, it's okay, but it's just the way he was. He was a very odd cat.
Okie dokie. So hopefully I can get this up here. Alright, open racing, Kara. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit rough, but you'll be able to see what's going on here. We add.
They will. We won't.
Well, you'll be able to see it on the screen on what's going on.
I don't watch the live stream.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because your computer would die.
No, it's not even that. It just completely throws people off if you're watching the live stream.
Ah,
I'm in the show doing the show. I don't need to be watching the show.
that's true. All right, window capture.
Although, in this case, maybe I will try and open you up for a minute just so I can see what the hell you're looking at.
Did it like Photoshop? It looks like it likes Photoshop. No? Okay, let me...
You didn't do it?
Yeah, let me try a couple more modifications. And do keep on talking about Kerran stuff while I'm trying to do this here. I don't mean to hijack the entire show for a moment.
Yeah, this is what we call covering while you...
Hey, Wick, thanks for those directions, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just wait till it comes up on its own. I'm afraid to screw anything up.
Okay.
What was that? Oh, how to open up a command prompt?
Yeah, and do the... Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying, like, everybody's been, like, playing with the configuration file for the game and trying to figure out, like, how to fix frame rate issues and stuff. And I tried a couple things, and I was like, yeah, I'm just, never mind.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Nothing worked for me anyway. But, so Kerran looked cool. I was, not, and again, I'm not bragging. It was just, pointing out that, my observations about the design were correct. And something for the builders out there, again, make note of, they use the landscape to then build their stuff upon. So they're not re-leveling areas in order to, that'll make, if they do a contest for designs, although they're not literally, these aren't really contests for things that are going in game per se right now. So the Dark Elf stuff's just there. It's going on the island, but they're not actually going in the game, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So all right. So I was gonna say right now, if you build on a big giant rock as the centerpiece of like this area, this fortress you build or something, that rock may not be there when they transplant it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go. I got it up now. Finally.
All right.
It's I just had to do kind of a monitor capture, so the frame rate's going to be really low for a moment, but the frame rate really doesn't matter here. Also, it's going to obscure chat being shown, so let me see if I can move it over to the side
there
here
we-
a little
Well,
bit.
Petrie brings up a good point in chat. Petrie says that it could have been a Kerran tail that he saw in the character image, and that's something we need to talk about. Tails.
Oh yes,
Definitely need to talk about
because
that.
that's we don't have. I don't have the body types images up right now. It was all the ones that they showed during the thing that I think I got them all. So this is actually the first one they showed here was the heads, and I didn't quite have time to read over the little thing about society, but I'll give that a little quick read through here. Kerran society is defined by its contrast. There are people driven by fierce animal instincts, yet are seekers of spiritual enlightenment. They treasure family and tradition, yet relish exploration and discovery. Rather than suppressing these dualities, Kerrans embrace them, creating one of the richest and most complex cultures on Norath. Hailing from the lush archipelago of the Kerra Isles, Kerrans are instinctively drawn out of the world spirit called Nor. Is that an L or an I? I guess Norel. Seeking out sites of spiritual power to nurture and protect, they have used their skills as shipwrights to travel the world. They are traditionalists, but not pacifists. They embrace their bestial nature as a fundamental aspect of life, celebrating each year in the festival known as the Great Hunt. That's awesome. I am
You're such a good reader.
I am so excited for the Great Hunt. You don't even know.
The impact.
Very nice.
Life for Kerrans is cyclical. Echo. There is a time to fight. There is a time to reflect. A time to explore. Kerrans do not choose between peace and war, or savagery and spirituality. They do not accept that one influence must extinguish another. Rather, they embrace that the season calls for it, and in doing so, or in so doing, maintain a crucial balance in there. That's kind of written a little bit weird there. Any who seek to undermine that balance will soon realize why Kerrans are renowned for having giant claws.
No, their relentless ferocity.
Yes, no, for having giant claws there. So, unfortunately, I didn't get the picture with the small down one, so we don't see the one in the lower right, but looks kind of similar to some of the other ones here. So we get kind of some different angles of a few different faces and a little bit of different detail, and I really, really like it. The styles of the eyes are, really awesome because it's not the same as kind of a fleshy eye. It's the eye's got the fur kind of around it and protecting it, and it's not going to have the same definition of an eyebrow because while I do see that cats have like a little bit kind of thicker fur above the eyes, it's a little bit longer. It's not the same kind of pronounced eyebrows that humans and elves and other fleshy things have. So it's gonna be there for the sake of SO emote and being able to convey that emotion, but it's definitely going to be more subdued, and I think almost a little bit more a part of the actual shape of the brow, and less the what's it called, the like fur kind of being extended out.
Okay, so I just have to make one comment and one smart-ass comment, and I apologize, and I will move on. But every time they have shown this race, all I can think about is Lion King.
Yeah.
And that's all I can think about, and it's just I'm having a hard time getting over that.
Well,
that's all
I
I'm
mean,
gonna say about that.
the Disney does what they can to anthropomorphize animals to make them look more human. So if landmark characters and EverQuest Next characters have more of that Disney-ish look, so that SO emote will work properly and will be able to convey that emotion, then going from a lion to a Disney-ish lion will definitely take you from closer to Disney making a lion. So yeah, I can definitely see that.
And the official post is up, by the way.
Awesome. So we'll just could you post a link to that, and we'll just refer to that for the rest here as all the images, right?
Yep.
Cool
There you
deal.
go.
Cool, thank you very much. Alright, so let's just refer to that for now, and I'll get Photoshop out of everybody's way and get all of your lovely faces back on here. Monitor capture. I need to get that off. There we go. All right, everybody. 2 minutes. Yeah, right as I was posting it, Diggs. Okay.
Well then, Diggs, why didn't you post it 2 minutes ago?
Yeah. Come on. Oh well. No, it takes a moment for things to actually show when they're posted. So that top row I really like because some things that kind of remind me of dwarves with the little not braid, but the tie going in the middle of the chin fur there. That's pretty cool. And then the other is the kind of bead looking thing sticking off on the fang there as a decoration. That's really cool. It's the beard, the shape, yeah, all that stuff. So yeah, that's it's definitely you can see that there's more to it. They're not just going to be fur. They're going to be accentuating their fangs, probably their claws as well. They might actually have things braided a little bit. We might see more like a mane, like a bigger kind of fur going around the neck area there. I'd really like to see that because that's kind of what I was kind of hoping to have for part of the character I'm going to be doing. So we've got some of the other faces. The set that's on the left side there, we get more of a, I guess, a panthery kind of face there. And it's, you can see from each of them kind of some of the differences, some of the curves, the way the snout and the mouth kind of is shaped, the length and the depth of the jaws relative to one another.
I have to say I like the ones where it's more of a slanted down and it's not protruding out so much as it's more of a flat down. That's what I prefer.
I gotcha. I'm definitely noticing they all have this very distinct concave kind of shape going on, where there's the snout here and the mouth here. This is where the jaw itself is actually at. All of their faces kind of have that same thing going on, so it's kind of like this or whatever. So the snout up here and the kind of the tip of the chin down there. So that's really interesting, and I wonder if that specific shape, along with that crescent shape that we're going to be seeing and using a lot, is something that could kind of be accentuated, or if that kind of fits in with that crescent shape actually. Flat down with the human body.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So that's that first slide. Now the second slide, this is getting into some of the details, and I took a little bit of notes on this stuff here. The four-pointed star is when they really started talking about the seafaring nature of Kerrans. So, big stuff there, because that's really going to help define a lot of the aesthetic and a lot of how the inlays are going to look, and a lot of how things, even I could see people doing things. So when you look at somebody's claim from the map view, it even has that four-pointed star that you can see very clearly in a bird's eye look.
So I'm curious how, from a building perspective, how difficult, because I am not a voxelmancer by any stretch, how difficult would it be to make that four-pointed star?
I don't think, with all the stuff that went into making the Dark Elf infrastructure and their designs and all of the curves and stuff that came from that, it's probably not that difficult, especially there's probably tons of guides out there, or even pieces that you can just grab from a, what's it called, swap meet, and be able to just use those, and, it's whatever, someone will get a little bit of voxel credit, and good for them. Because I can see that being I would probably do that for myself a little bit if I find good pieces that people have already designed. Just copy and use those. Kerrans from EverQuest Next look more tigery. Yeah, the model's still being changed though. We saw an early prototype of what they could look like. And this is actually from that painting that Godboard did, right?
And
Whoops.
You gotta remember too, they're probably gonna leave some room variance so you, the player, can choose what kind of cat you're gonna look like. Do you want to be more lion? Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to be more tiger? Do you want to be more domesticated cat? I
Right, right.
suspect that will be a flexibility. They're still all cats. They're
Yeah, and
still
if
all going to
nothing
be
else,
big.
like a sliding scale for how far do you want your snout to go out, or how up or
Yeah,
down, or that kind of stuff.
exactly.
Yeah, so that is the Kerran kind of looking one from the fancy EverQuest Next painting, and in the painting you actually don't get to see. I don't even think you get to see him in full like this because they're kind of obscured with the two half naked people fighting in front of them. But yeah, I can see what you're kind of saying there in terms of the maybe looking a little more tigery and less liony. But that's just one sample. I mean, the Karens are just as diverse as the different monocultures of plants or all sorts of other things. I mean, we have so many different appearances of humans. I would imagine we're going to have the same level of variation for Karens. They're not all going to look the same. There's going to be huge amounts of variation covering the entire feline spectrum, and maybe even kind of teasing a little bit into some of the other stuff, like they were saying about in EverQuest 1 and 2, almost maybe a little like foxy kind of features to some of them with some of the ears and some of the placement. So it'll definitely be interesting to a fell cow. I don't know what you're talking about. Definitely interesting to see how that all goes in. So back on the subject of the four-pointed star. Now we don't, go ahead.
Remember too, don't be just completely hung up on the star per se. Like you look right next to the star and there's the shape of the roof. They're showing you that they're maintaining that shape without being a slave to it.
Right. Well,
it's still inferred. Now, if you look real carefully at that sketch, it doesn't mean, however, that looking at it from the top, it's a four-pointed star.
Right.
It looks like it's more circular. It's just meant to replicate the feel, the shape,
Yeah. Now, I guess the other thing with the four-pointed star, and this is getting into detail that they were really trying to hammer home, those curves. The reason why that four-pointed star, not just because it's a four-pointed star, but those curves are doing that positive and negative space feel that they are talking about. And you can see that kind of sloped roof towards the bottom of the second image. And that's really what they're talking about with the negative space, that you see the kind of curvature and that kind of open, curvy looking area. The thick black line isn't where the actual structure is built up, but that's kind of the flow of the lines as it goes across there. So it creates that kind of crescent shape off the building, even if the building itself doesn't actually have that crescent shape built into it. So it's it's something where if you build a circle out of squares, for example, it's gonna of course it's made out of squares, but you look at it from a distance and it's like, oh my goodness, that's actually a circle. So it's that same sort of thing, that it's a matter of being able to set things up in such a way that you're getting that curve, not just for the part where you're actually building up the wall, but then the part where you've got the negative space. Yeah, I could keep ranting.
Yeah,
you go.
you put a lot of thought into that, way more than I have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scrolled down. I'm actually looking at the photo after, a couple down. Hang on.
Okay.
There. All right. I'm looking at the building layout, right?
Oh, the big one, yeah.
Yeah, and this really gives you an idea of that. They're not primitive.
No.
So but I see what they're going for, and I like it. I would really like to live here, actually. Like, this would be a beautiful, I love that open air vibe to, like, the interior.
I'm not down with permanent scaffolding myself.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you don't like the I liked that part.
I like it for the context of the build, but I'm saying personally, I would not like to live in a place where permanent wood scaffolding is how I get to and from places.
No,
Well, I'm
no,
sure
but also,
that's
thinking more of this jumping the
Yeah.
Kerrans, you know,
That's
I
exactly
think
what
they
I
would
was going
dig
to
it.
say.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say is, those ladders are there for us puny humans that don't have lunar anklets.
Yeah.
I suspect we're all going to be jumping up into these things. See, this is almost, there you go. My crafting outpost is a Kerran crafting outpost. How about that?
There you
Oh,
go.
there you go. A couple sticks propped up. Yeah,
Exactly. I
that
can
would be me
tweak
too.
it over the week, and it would look like a Kerran crafting outpost.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
I don't know if you guys caught the Evercast show, but they were talking about Karens and about would there be, some, feral, more feral, Karens and living in the more, primitive, areas and that sort of stuff. I wonder how they would react if anybody put any more primitive builds out there for the Karens instead of, so lofty and noble. I don't know.
I could definitely see there being a subsect or a different kind of group. Maybe they've broken away. They didn't like the Combine for whatever reason, and they decided to be more tribal about things. They might still continue to use some of the styles and shapes and motifs of Kerran architecture, but doing it with more primitive materials and doing it with less, I guess, heavily worked stuff. That they're just using stacks of stones rather than actually plastering it in.
Less
Yeah.
fancy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, not even using axes, literally just, carving things out and chopping it all and doing all their work just with their own claws and their own brute force.
Right. I almost see it like as a subset of, this group of Karens, and the landmark Karens, evolved kind of in their separate way versus maybe some that stayed behind and didn't quite, evolve in the same way with their culture. Diggs says that Flatus was all about the Karens that were more rustic. Yep.
Yeah,
That was a good show.
it was. So, now something else in
It
the build layout here while we're looking at it, and we'll actually go back up to the next one after we look at this, because it's better illustrated there. The different heights. We don't see anybody whose neighbors are at the same height, and that's a great thing because I imagine, well, what would happen if you got a bunch of cats just eyeballing each other all day? So it makes sense. Like, symmetry isn't something they entirely care about. Having things the same height, especially, they emphasize. And scrolling back up an image, the one that we saw last week that they've now added a little bit more detail to it. I think that was actually one of the players that added some variations that gave them some ideas for it. We see that nothing is the same height. None of the buildings are the same height. They're all at different eye levels relative to each other. I would say that little kind of lookout kind of post between the two middle buildings, it's just that kind of little there's that kind of stony arch attaching to it from the left building. That is far enough away that the foreground building on the far right isn't going to have those line of sight and eyeballing issues. Because I'm sure there's a certain distance where, they could look each other in the eye, but it's not like a confrontational sort of thing. It's if you get cats close enough looking each other in the eye, it becomes confrontational. So that's what they're trying to avoid.
Exactly. I love that. Is probably my favorite part about this architecture so far is the varying heights of the buildings and how intentional that is. That's really cool. Also, how some of the buildings are more pointed and others are flattened off at the top. That's cool. I could do a flat roof. That's about all I could do. Sign me up for that one.
Yeah, I agree. Petrie, that is a really good point that they did have. They're talking about really luxurious, detailed interiors. Also making things comfortable, not just looking nice, but somewhere where you actually want to be and you want to hang out, and it's just a place to chill. Because I don't imagine they have too much problems with stuff. You're hungry, go out and hunt something. Whatever. Do cat things all day. I don't imagine they have like this really structured society where they're like constantly trying to build up a military and farm a whole bunch of, well, maybe they've got farming. I mean, they are connected to nature. That's actually a point we didn't really see anything about, is whether they have farming or agrarian to them, or if they just kind of live off the land as carnivores and let that be
Yeah, to
that.
me, it seems like they would be more carnivore-ish, and the farming would be. I don't see a high need for kitchens in the Kerran architecture. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, not really. Not for
Hmm.
themselves at least.
No, definitely more just lounge spaces, and that internal shot that they showed. I mean, there was arches just everywhere. Did you guys notice that the fabric on
Yeah,
the roof arched, and then the arch designs all around, and then even on the stair, they had the one stair. There was miniature little arches all around the detail of the stairs. That was really cool.
yeah. Yeah, and a lot of that cross-hatching pattern, they use that a lot everywhere,
Yeah,
especially that open kind of cross-hatching for the
that was
open air.
cool.
Really nice. Adam, you're still looking through the images there, right?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean,
Was it?
you
Is
guys
there?
have said it all. I don't have much to add.
Okay, okie dokie. Just want to make sure you had a chance there. All right. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you about the use of the arches, and it's not just the arches kind of curving with the circular part downward, the empty part downward, but also you can see, like you kind of were saying, along the right side, that there's that kind of reverse curve going along, and that's where the posts are coming off of. So definitely a lot of curves and a lot of cross hatching, see, being really big with their stuff. Doing curves as inlays like we see around the stairs and that kind of trim treatment. That might actually be a material we need to ask for, is
Hmm.
a different type of a trim treatment sort of thing that has more of that curviness to it.
I think that's a great idea.
Cool.
Certainly would save time if that was a texture.
Yeah. Now that's the other thing I was thinking about. They've talked about materials. Now I could see a lot of props being added, different curtains and such, but I could also
Hmm.
see a lot of those same materials being added as a texture that we can work with. Because it's really easy if we, build something out of voxels that looks like a fabricy cushion material, and no matter how you cut the material and how you mess with that set of voxels, it's always going to have that kind of smoothed, fabricy, cushiony look to it. That would be great. That would really be able to make it easy to make custom looking chairs and sofas and lounging places. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them. Someone was saying earlier the place looks like a hookah bar, and yeah, 100%, 100%. It even looks a little smoky because of the
Uh-huh.
fireplace there. You can see hanging lanterns. They've also got a fire pit. Now, this isn't the bottom floor. This is an upper floor, and they've got a
Right.
fire pit hanging out in the middle, and that's where they hang out and do their thing. So that's really cool. They might even just cook their food like straight on that fire there. It's like, okay,
Absolutely.
here's
Well,
a bucket of
being,
fish. Everyone grab one.
being high up and that
Mhm.
all window on all the sides like that,
Mhm.
it's probably very cool. And
Yep.
so that's the heating. Like, yeah, you can see the pillows are there. Like, that's meant to be like sat around. And yeah, I like that. I'm very impressed. Yeah, I can see the swirls and the moons and the rugs. Those are all nice. And yeah, I'm very much digging the aesthetic of what they're showing us
I do
here.
too.
So
Yeah, and I mean they talked about there being shops and restaurants and the seat of power and all of that sort of stuff. So it's gonna have all of the architecture and stuff of a city. It's just not gonna be necessarily built in kind of the same way. There's gonna be a lot of, I feel like there's probably gonna be a lot of buildings where the bottom half is just there as the thing that interfaces it with the terrain, and the upper half is really where the
Hmm.
action's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking of that myself. I was thinking, I'm trying to imagine what's on these lower floors, and honestly, I don't think they would put anything down there. I think they would just use the upper halves of the buildings for their living spaces.
Yeah. Like I said, they would want to keep it open and not have a lot of tight, narrow spaces, so that way,
Hmm.
should they need to chase something down, they can. Otherwise, it's just a place to get from point A to point B, and probably also keep it open and not too decorated, so that way, if something gets damaged or they need to refurbish the infrastructure in some area, they don't have to pull out a bunch of stuff to do it. They can just go down there and, knock out a segment of wall and rebuild it, and they're done. So I could see that being another part is the easy maintenance kind of factor, where the Dark Elves, they conjure their stuff out of stone, and I imagine they would be able to just draw up more natural stone to repair or replace anything that was damaged. Kerrans don't have anything like that. They look like they do build all of their stuff hand-worked from scratch. And I'm looking at something here. It's a detail you might not notice. That little candle just to the lower right of the fire pit, it actually has that double curved star. It has the curved star below it and then one rotated 45 degrees, the darker one, and the candle. That's really cool.
Yeah. Something I'm also noticing looking at sort of the city build is all of the ornate detail is done in wood.
Yes.
So, the posts, the steps, the bridge, the things they're adding, wood is very much a part of that. I love that. I am really digging this. I am really digging what they're doing here.
Yeah.
And I think that cannot believe I have blanked out on his name, the guy.
Jeff?
Not the guest speaker. Thank you, Jeff. Yes. Jeff had said that they were, they use wood. They use oh, Lord, my brain is dead. What am I trying to think of? The stucco and that kind of thing, instead of the stone and the metal. And it's very different than what we were working on previously with the Dark Elves. More natural.
Yeah, we are going to need more wood textures for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've mentioned that before. You've mentioned that on the show. We need that and the ability to control which way the grain's going consistently.
Yeah. So, before we continue talking about, because we'll probably be talking about the images for the rest of it, I'm just going to kind of go through my notes real quick at the stuff that they were talking about.
Jump out anything that you wanted to make sure you talked about.
So they talked about they don't have a design for Kerran ships, but they also didn't say anything about Kerran ports, and that's I talked about that a little bit earlier. We don't know what that's going to look like, and I think that's going to be a great place for exploration because Kerrans are going to want to be able to bring their boats ashore and do what they need to, load them and unload them, but they're going to want to do it in a way that minimizes the impact to nature. So I don't know if they're actually going to be building posts all the way into the foundation, kind of ground stone below, or if they're actually going to have more, I don't know, flotation and stuff as the means to keep up their docks.
I see it more ropey, more bridge-like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I could see a lot more like floating kinds of woods and stuff being used for that, rather than thick chunks of stone thick chunks of rock, wood that are being dug into the rock and the stone below and off to the sides and everything. But something that's sturdy enough that it can handle any size of catamaran. Nice one, Yad. Any size of boat.
That's hilarious.
That is well played. Well played.
Oh, yes. I roll for that one.
So we talked about the positive and negative shapes and those curve shapes and those C shapes. They're great. Definitely going to be where I would say pointy was the thing that everybody was almost overdoing with the Dark Elf stuff. Curves, I think, are the thing that we're going to see a lot of people potentially almost overdoing. And just like with color, how that can be overdone, curves can easily be overdone with the Kerran stuff. There's also a lot of straight stuff that we see, especially a lot of the logs and posts that are just these sturdy, solid things that are going all the way through the building. And I've got notes on that a little further down.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I see that.
Yeah, so we've got like the wood stuff more towards the top and more of the plaster and mortar lower down. The wood supports, they are going through the, what the heck was he calling?
The structure. They're going through the interior, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more of the rough-hewn log, more natural looking. At least that's the way it looked to me.
I'll bet you could probably, that's where the kitchen is, and that's where all the meat's hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how long the meat hangs or if they like it all fresh and gamey.
Yeah.
They're cats. The kind of irony, electromagnetic taste that comes from the blood of something that's still living that you just bit into. I'm sure that's something that Karens absolutely love. They probably savor that as part of the Great Hunt.
That's
one
true,
of
but
their.
then how do you balance that with how refined they are?
They cook when they're around humans.
Oh, you think they just put it on for humans?
Probably. I'm expecting they put it on for probably most of the races, unless there's any other animal race that just clicks with them in such a way that they can just be
Their true nature comes out.
yeah, and they just be hanging out or whatever, and it's no big deal.
Yeah, but remember, they're also very spiritual, so I don't know if that. I don't know. I think they might have a little bit of refinement in there too.
Of course, if they're spiritual, they would also want to, I don't know, eat the spirit of the thing. I don't. I don't just eat the meat; I also eat its soul.
That's right. Spiritual how? How dark are we going here?
Yeah, and then they were even saying the posts can actually extend from one building to the next. So I could see whether that's familial types of things that you're building, the next generation's home next door, or if that's your shop next door, and that's why you're being able to build across into it. But even the structures that you're building across into, it seems like they want to have differentiating height levels so nobody's eyeballing each other. So that's definitely something, no building near another building, no open lookout point should be at the same height as a nearby one, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably ways that rule can be broken, but I would say for the most part, try to keep to that rule. They're giving us the guidelines for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's and to me that makes the most sense out of everything they've said so far in terms of what they naturally are inclined to do. The varying heights in the buildings is what I was referring to.
Yeah. So,
they were definitely sure to remind us they're not primitive. They're extremely refined and have a great history in the world.
Yep.
So,
Now their towers can be square or circular or something in between. There's no limit to that. Everything will look good and it will look right in the context for now. As we go further on with the process, one thing might weigh in and be the favorite over the other. One might look more correct than the other. But for right now, either way, circular or squared, or I would imagine if you can pull off an octagon, that would work just fine too. Even having convex walls, having a wall where it actually, this is where the structure is, actually having the curves inward. So instead of all the stuff we see right here, it's pretty convex the entire way around instead of having that kind of concave look to it. Mm-hmm. So that could be another place to experiment and see if there's some variation. Definitely, though, in the roofs, that I see a lot more of that convex kind of C shape going on, and they've illustrated that, and that's definitely what they want to have. They can have primitive stuff in their decorations, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think that the interesting part is going to be the play between the primitive and the refined, and how you work that out in your build, and finding a balance there. I think is probably still what they're trying to work out.
Kind of already. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be giving away all your awesome stuff. Of course, people are still going to have to build it too. They can hear it here, but they still have to build it. That'll be the tough part.
Yeah, Thornbriar, and that's what we as builders have to work out in terms of. I say we. What you guys have to work out in terms of what you build is how you're going to balance how are you going to interpret that really for yourself.
We, as in the community, we.
We, as in the broad we. Not me. We.
And then the use of different fabrics and leather is another thing. We haven't really seen Dark Elves. They didn't seem like they cared about that stuff aside from their beds and their chairs. They didn't have curtains anywhere. Kerrans, on the other hand, I'm sure they love that stuff, especially because it works really well with the open air kind of architecture. And if we actually get some sort of wind effects going later on, we'll actually have curtains blowing in some realistic way. That would be amazing. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I had said when we were talking a little bit about what props we wanted. I would love a curtain or a fabric that would animate to pretend like it was blowing in the breeze.
yeah. And I'd love to have something like that where you can click it and turn that off, so you can,
Yes, it has to be on or off. Yeah, because you don't want to be in an interior space with your curtains fluttering.
it would look kind of weird.
That would look kind of
A
weird.
little weird. Right, and then mostly wood on top, and wood, in a lot of the different places, wood for the structure. The stone and plaster is definitely the foundation, and like the middle and lower parts, though. So I think that'll be something to focus on. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be raw stone for those things. In fact, which was the tower in particular? There was one that I really liked to kind of break from that. Oh, the second image on the list. The decorative trim in the middle, kind of connecting the foundation where it actually kind of connects to the ground, with more of the structured interior where you might actually be doing more stuff. And there's that crescent or the four-pointed star done as an inlay along there, and that's really cool. And you can see they actually along the bottom of that inlay pattern, they actually squash and stretch the proportions of the four-pointed star. So it doesn't have to be the proportions of a square. You can actually kind of pull it and make it a little bit more wider, fatter in different proportions. So that's really neat. Alright, continuing through the notes here. And the structures, we talked about this last week. The structures actually are supposed to be built into the land, not clearing the land and diverting rivers, but not you're building bridges to not obstruct the rivers. You're leaving them in their natural state. The natural curvature and hilliness of the terrain when you got there, leave it there, work with it. That's the Kerran style.
Absolutely.
It makes me think of the hobbits, actually, in the Shire, how they built everything into the land rather than clearing the land and building up.
Uh-huh.
Of course, that was also kind of building into those hobbit mounds where
Right.
this is a bit of a different sort of thing, but still the same use. And that also the same thing is I can't really think of going through the hobbits' land and infrastructure that they would really have eye level to one another. You walk out your front door and you can see your next door neighbor. I can't really think of anywhere where I would see that, even in the movies or in the video game or in any of the other art that I've seen from it. So that part also kind of goes in unison. No hydroelectricity for Karens, maybe not, but they do have a water wheel. They definitely have a water wheel, so they at least have a mill of some sort. So they have some sorts of mid-range mechanical technology. They aren't doing hey Tobes. they aren't doing gnome level technology and probably even dwarf level like high tech mechanisms and stuff. But they've got a water wheel, and they're probably using it either as a mill or it's doing something. Maybe it's part of their smoking rotisserie system for fish. I don't know. I'm sure they've got smoked fish, and a rotisserie would probably make sense because they're smart. I mean, they can do that sort of stuff. Structures. Oh, yeah, I talked about that. Now, definitely stairs, ladders, ramps, scaffolds, and other ways to get around. Those are all open. I actually want a zip line sort of prop or something where you can actually climb along a rope as an interactable prop would be great. I don't know, it'd be a little bit difficult because I don't know how much the props can actually change your XYZ position in the world that much right now.
I think that's a great idea, actually, because I think Karen's being so sure-footed. I think that they would be able to. I don't know how that's going to interact with us as players, but they would have more risky type of higher, narrow, tricky to scale kind of places to climb around on.
Yeah.
Certainly
Well,
no safety railings or ladders.
yeah. Well, not for the stuff that's meant for them. For humans, yeah, but
Yeah, for humans, yeah.
for them, it's like, yeah, no, we've got perfect balance and
Mm-hmm.
four sets of limbs to grab and move with, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, technology. We talked about that with the water wheel. We talked about the wood lattice being used everywhere, very open
Mm-hmm.
air. That's apparently Vashir style. Vashir apparently from Luckland. They're from the moon. So that's why, while we might see a lot of names and themes and stuff that are the same that we'll see from Vashir, there is no Vashir right now because there is no Luckland that we're aware of, and that event hasn't transpired. So that might be a race they open up later on, or a variation or something. But definitely that feeling of comfort and opulence is what they
Mm-hmm.
was being conveyed with that, and that's the hookah bar looking image in the style guide is really where you see that. The exteriors, they're functional, but the
Right.
interiors are where they put their detail, and that makes sense because the exteriors, they look like stuff's going to get weathered really quickly and they're going to have to replace the materials regularly, but the interiors are going to be pristine and nothing's going to get around on those. They're going to be just fine, just as long as so long as the roofs don't break down and there isn't a bunch of water messing everything up. I'd imagine those are the things, if the roof's held out, that all the stuff that's down below them, the detail stuff, is gonna always be the nicest looking stuff you can find. A lot of people going to SOE Live. It's gonna be pretty cool. Kerran
Uh,
beer. I don't know what kind of alcohol Kerrans would actually drink. That's a good
Probably
point.
not beer if they're super refined. Maybe they have something snootier.
I don't know. I think for them it's more how they drink. Do they drink with a glass or do they lick out of a bowl?
No, they have a glass, definitely.
But those fangs will get in the way.
Oh,
I
they'll make
know.
it work.
Yeah, I
Drink
know.
between the fangs.
Catnip, like Dig
Yes,
says.
catnip indeed. And they've said if you have any ideas for props for the Karens, anything like leather related stuff or fabric related stuff or wood related stuff, um, or like I was thinking the wood spars. That was the word I was looking for. Those wood spars that are going through the buildings, those big wooden logs. They actually want to have maybe metal caps on the ends of those, so those logs themselves actually being props that we can scale, I think would be really nice. And then the metal caps and stuff people would be doing, they would be doing with voxels. I would especially see mithril being used if they're meant to be something that's shiny and contrasting from everything else. Pinky claw out, nice. Good one, Maddox. And yeah, that's we don't really see metal much in their builds, but definitely, yeah, the carved end caps or metal caps. We don't really see too much
Mm.
metal in their builds, though.
No, yeah,
They
definitely
don't
not.
build with a lot of it. Other than the pork cutlet they've got in the one area where it'll come down and block off the river for a moment, and it doesn't even seem like they would want to use that very much. It's probably more to stop a ship. I bet it doesn't even go all the way down to the water level. Reliefs and carvings and things that tie to their natural back, their history and their tradition and nature and all that stuff. I could definitely see. I don't think we're going to see necessarily cave painting, something a little bit more refined than that. And once again, I was talking about needing props for that.
Hmm.
Different shapes and little like flat kind of figures and things that we can use to do that visual storytelling on the scale that we need to actually have that fidelity.
I think Thornbriar brings up a good point in chat. He says the looks like the interior has sunning spots, and Rosie kind of alluded to that when she said, with the sun passing through the building. I mean, think about what cats do, right? They follow the sun throughout the house,
Right.
and that's definitely something to keep in mind too. To me, the Karens seem Either very active or very lazy. Like they're very fierce, but then when they're not fighting, to me, they seem very loungy, kind of. And
Yeah.
so, that I thought that was a
Well,
good point, Thornbriar.
it's kind of a
Good job.
dichotomy. When they're being active, they're using their energy, and then the rest of the
Yep.
time they're resting because they're big cats, and it takes a lot of energy to be a big cat.
Right.
Karens live on top of the mountains, very high up, down close to the water. We saw a lot of stuff with the water. They build around rivers, they'll build around oceans. They're a seafaring culture, so you might find them in the mountains, especially if there's waterfalls. I would imagine they absolutely love. But for the most part, we're probably going to be seeing them more at and around sea level and water level and around sources of water. Yeah. That was actually the next note I was going to say, is that they build around water.
Yes.
It's actually
Great segue right there.
Then they actually do build fortifications around their lands and around things that they intend to protect. So we might actually find things in the world of EverQuest Next where if you're a Kerran going up to it, it's going to be a different event than a different race going up to it, because Kerran's built that wall around that event, and the only, that encounter that can potentially happen there, it has a different context for Kerrans. Maybe if you're there as a Kerran, you're actually defending that thing, and it turns it into a semi PvP encounter in the world. I think that would be great. I don't know if we'll actually see that sort of thing, but definitely they'll build walls around things they want to protect, whether it's their own home and their own lands, or if it's something out in the wild that needs to be protected from outside forces and aggressors, and
Well, definitely, especially if they're traditional and they're family oriented. They're going to want to protect their people, their culture, their family. But I think you made a good point in your notes where you said, that they build walls and fortifications, but they're not super militaristic. There's not
right.
like massive weapons laying around everywhere.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something. They seem like a culture where they wouldn't want to have a bunch of weapons around. While dark elves,
Right.
they're all trained, and if it's me with a weapon versus you with a weapon, I'm gonna win. Karens are, it seems, completely different. Like, yeah, no, you don't have to worry about weapons. We don't have weapons. And then when stuff starts going down, oh yeah, we actually do have weapons and claws.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, they seem more subtle about it in general.
Yeah. Though I could see, and this is probably more later down the road sort of stuff, actually having some of their weapons, instead of being a dagger they hold in their hand, daggers that are basically extensions on their claws. That could be a really interesting way to go. I mean, everything about them, they have a lot more options for the versatility they can do with the equipment, so it'd be pretty neat. Riley,
Continue without me. I'll be right back.
Okie dokie.
Okie doke.
So, large doorways. Now, this is a big point. Kerrans, at their very smallest, are 9 voxels tall and 4 voxels wide. But if you build things 9 voxels tall and 4 voxels wide, it's going to be very tight and narrow for them to get
It's
through.
going to be up to the ceiling.
They don't want to walk on all fours except when they're doing heroic movement to go really, really fast. They usually walk on all fours, or on two legs, rather. So the height, definitely 11 or 12, I would even say. The width, I was saying 6. I think Daddy-O was saying 9, and I think 12 by 9 would probably actually make more sense, because they're not just taller, they're much wider by proportion than the humans, especially having the armor plates the way they're designed. They're a lot larger and kind of floaty in the way they're designed, so that way, whether they're on 2 legs or 4 legs, they have full mobility. And we can see that if you go back to the EverQuest Next footage from SOE Live last year, you can see how that all works together. That, yeah, they kind of have that large, bulky, dare I say, World of Warcraft kind of look to them with just the really big armor. But for them, it makes sense. But at the same time, anticipate that with their builds.
And I think it's important to keep in mind, I mean, your estimation of, 11 or 12 by 6 for a doorway, that's just the doorway. I mean, you're going to want your ceiling height probably to be a little bit higher than that even. So, I don't know. I think you could stretch a pretty high ceiling. And talk to me a little bit, Neuro. I had to ask for clarification. I was one of those that didn't know what LOD was. What was he talking about in terms of things on the ceiling
Okay,
or
so
up to the edge?
what he meant with the level of detail is that if you walk into a room, the distance between where you're at and where all of the objects and all of the props and everything you can see needs to be close enough that the detail doesn't start losing definition the further out you go. So as I'm sure everybody's noticed, the further away you get from a build, the lower the resolution gets. That's the level of detail scaling.
Okay.
So what he's saying is trying to keep things tight enough that you don't have a level of detail change from one side of the room to the other, such as that you can be looking in one spot and some other spot in the room is starting to look jaggedy or look odd in whatever way. So that's definitely
So you don't want to have any of the blur, is what you're saying. You don't want it to blur or get any. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that. I mean, gosh, I mean, how high would you have to go for that to start happening? It seems like it would have to be pretty high.
It'd be the sort of thing where you just build the tower where you walk in from the bottom and then you just go. You're looking straight up. It seems like that's where you would have different like paths and patterns kind of going up to help obstruct the visibility of that top floor from the bottom floor. We do need LOD sliders. I agree, Wick. They'll get to that point with it. Don't worry. Ceiling was supposed to be 29 voxels. That sounds about right.
Did you really think that sounds awfully high to me?
No, that's.
I thought somebody said 19.
Maybe it was 19. Well, we'll have to review that later. Diggs was saying 29. Maybe it is 19. We'll definitely have to review 19. So
No, you're right. It's not that tall.
So it's probably somewhere. I'm guessing it's the 29.
Well, it might be if you consider, if they're, 10, let's just round it up, 10 voxels high. I mean, and those rooms were very open and airy, so 3 times your height,
That makes
for an
sense.
open and airy room. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to speed round the rest of the notes so that we can then wrap up because we've been talking for quite a long time and it's been an awesome conversation. And I'm sure we still didn't even cover everything.
I know, right?
So the Kerrans don't necessarily do heavy work on the logs and trees and stuff like that. They shouldn't be smooth and polished and sanded necessarily, but can have a little bit of a rough kind of look. I'm sure they'll still treat everything with oil, so everything will look nice. They said darker woods for sure.
Only because those were indigenous to the area where they would be that kind of wood.
Yeah. So there's well springs that are important to their history. So fountains are definitely another important part of their aesthetic, and also because that ties with water. So if you build fountains, this is the time to do it, especially now that we have the water voxels. Yeah, Cody.
The other thing that was important about that is that up above ground, below ground, do they build below ground? Only when absolutely necessary was sort of Jeff's point, which is why he brought up the wellspring to begin with,
Right.
There would be a need for them, like, we need the water. All right, let's build, underground, much like a cat. Like, they may not love tunneling into something underground, but they will if what they want to eat is at the end of it,
Yeah,
so.
fair enough.
But yeah, no, now's the time. If you're going to put fountains into your builds or try and come up with an aesthetic for that, now is the time.
This is it. Yep. All right. And then for some of the colors, they're saying, like, for the bricks and stuff, like adobe, the whitewash sort of stuff, maybe bone color, lighter sort of stuff. I'd imagine plaster and sandstone are going to be the biggest ones. Maybe the lighter slate, the lightest of the colored slate, but definitely not in the mid and the darker ones. And the slate seems a little bit too rough for them because they're more of a plastery type. They aren't working with natural stone.
Yeah, the slate, I'm not feeling that vibe so much.
Yeah, maybe a little bit for some of the foundation stuff in small segments, but like handcrafted boulders or something even. Their colors definitely seem like green and blue, like the plants in nature, and blue for water, And I would say maybe also either we didn't see it, but a gold or a silver probably to represent that star, or maybe even
Yep.
that kind of bluish a little bit, like we actually did see in a little bit of the art. But definitely blue and green I can see being their major like accent colors. These are the ones that they're doing to color things in, while everything else, kind of like the dark elves, they wanted to keep a little bit more muted and reserved. And once again, Kerrans aren't primitive,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have weapons everywhere. So we pretty much covered everything, and that's good
Yeah.
because it's actually time to wrap up. Otherwise, I'm going
All
to have to
right.
cut this into 2 segments. So thank you very much. On my screen right here has been Adam, coming at you as he has been for many weeks here, and returning guest here on screen left is Tall Iced Latte, who has been awesome having you on here, and I definitely want to get
Thanks.
you on again in the future.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much it for the show here. So this has been Live Feature Rant. I'm your host, Legendary Neurotoxin. I can go over the list of shows again, but yeah, I think you folks already know what all I do at this point. So definitely these two fine folks here, be checking out their channels. Adam with his YouTube, and
Yep.
Iced Latte, you've got your streaming stuff going. And
Mm-hmm.
on that note, it is time to wrap up because we might already have gone over. So thank you very much, everybody, and I will see you later.
All right. Catch you
Bye.
later.